Hey everyone, welcome to our new episode of Fiction in Real Life. We survived our awesome trip to England and we're back with this great new episode. Um, let's see, I'll first turn I feel like I'm in church. Heather has a fun announcement she wants to share.
Oh yeah. So I had a book release yesterday. A lot of you probably heard about it unless you weren't on social media because it was like everywhere. In the Shadow of Queens, finding out. I'm really excited because when we went on our trip to England, I was able to take a copy of the book and take pictures and do videos. So those are really fun that I'm sharing this week.
Great. And then Jennifer Moore has also something special to tell us, and she'll introduce today's episode.
So, as I have said a million times on here, I'm very excited about Healing Hazel. And so we decided since this book is about a nurse, we're going to talk about some medical mishaps. And we've had some really awesome stories sent in in that topic.
And some not awesome ones too.
We did get lots of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to tell the story. This is from Jill. And this is a story about her great-great-grandfather in the early 1900s, as recorded by his daughter in her journals. So this was down in southern Utah, and it was super rural. And so there's like no doctor anywhere in sight. But apparently her great-great-grandfather was what they called a bonesetter. And even though he had no medical training or anything, he still somehow had this ability to take bones and put them back in place once they were broken. Well, this one time, a young girl in the area fell and broke her wrist, and the family just put the wrist back together as best they could. And then for like a year, this little girl couldn't move her wrist or her hand or anything. And then she actually fell and broke it again. And this time they took her to the bonesetter, Jill's great-great-grandpa.
Oh, that's the wrong picture, Heather. Oh. It's also a wrist.
And he like pulled on all the fingers and just did his little bone setting stuff. And once it healed, it was totally fine. She had full movement and it was all fixed. And the crazy thing was, again, he really had no medical training whatsoever. So that's the first story from Jill. What do you think? Would you book it, Heather?
I like it. I think it's super fascinating. And because I know people today that have had broken something and it still just never works quite right. So that sounds like a fascinating something to put into the book.
Same. Yeah. I would book it. I love that kind of idea of somebody that has just this innate ability to, feel bones and kind of do it by feel and by impression. I don't know, feeling. I don't know the word, but I like it. So yeah, I would book it.
And I think I would also book it because this is maybe a little bit spiteful, but I sort of like stories where, you should have just called me in the first place, guys, duh. True. But anyway, so I liked it. All right, Jennifer, what's your story?
Okay, this is a story that uses that picture, but you don't have to show it yet. But so this is sent in by Shay, and she had a 7-year-old. Her 7-year-old was playing outside, and he didn't have any shoes on. And he came in and he said, "Mom, I think I have a splinter." And so they got the tweezers and they're kind of looking around, and she couldn't find anything. So they just left it alone. And then about a week later, he came to her and he's like, "Mom, my foot is driving me crazy." And she, looks at it and it's swollen and infected. And so they go to the doctor, and the doctor digs around, and finally they have to numb him up and cut him open and everything. And they pulled out a needle out of his foot. And then the same kid, she said, and this was what was funny, she's like, "I don't even sew, so I don't know where all these needles came from." But she said he was playing a game and he slammed his hand down on the table and another needle went into his hand, and the doctor couldn't get it out because it's right in there with some important nerves, and they're worried that if they cut in there and make too much of a mess, they're gonna hurt. He'll have permanent damage or something. So he has that needle sitting in his hand. So anyway,
wow.
Yeah, I've done that to my kids before, where I've been like, "You're fine, your foot's fine," and it turned out it was broken. So anyway, so I thought it was a cool story.
Okay, well, I'm going to go first, and I would totally book it, but I would probably give him some kind of superpower that came from having the needle in his body forever. I don't know. I feel like there should be a superpower involved in that. Heather?
I think I like that idea. I was actually thinking like a superpower or something that will save his life later. Like, I don't know, maybe he's in the wilderness and he, he's able to deflect like a bullet from some enemy, and whatever the needle ends up, saving his life or something. I don't know, but it would be cool to kind of use that as a play on a plot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd book it. I think, first of all, I think it was so funny how she said, I don't know where all these needles are coming from. I don't even
That's so
know. And her
funny.
kids had 2 stabbed in them that they couldn't find. Maybe he's a bad guy that gets it in there and that sets off a metal detector or something and gets him arrested.
It totally reminds me of that story that they always tell about the person who got a needle in their foot and then they thought it was going to go into their heart. And so they thought they were going to die any day. And they became this really wonderful, nice person because they thought they were going to die. Anyway, you've probably heard that story before. But anyway, okay, Heather, what's your story?
Okay, so mine is from Rebecca Connolly. She gave me permission to let me use her name. So Rebecca Connolly, she's an author, but she also works at a hospital, a medical office. And she said that this is pretty funny. This is around 10 years ago. And she also sometimes goes, helps out the ER too. And she said that they had someone come in for a follow-up on a fractured hand. So this is in her orthopedic office. And the note from the ER said that he had gotten into a bar fight over a woman. So while he was at his actual appointment, Rebecca gets another call from the ER and says they have a patient they want to send over. The second patient has a broken hand from a bar fight that was over a woman. So Rebecca said they never quite verified, but they're pretty sure that both those men were in the same fight. They broke their hands over the same woman. So they just made sure to usher out the first man before the second man arrived.
That's funny.
So I think I don't know, that just cracked me up. So I would probably book something like that just because it's funny and it almost sounds like it is stranger than fiction, but it's definitely fiction in real life. That stuff happens and it's bizarre.
That's funny. I think I would probably book it too, but I would make the woman they were fighting over fall in love with the bartender or someone, and neither of those guys get the woman. Jen?
Or the doctor. I don't know. Yeah,
the doctor.
It feels like a funny love triangle kind of story or something, a rom-com. I think it is funny that they're in there. And I could even imagine it in a show or something where the nurses are trying to sneak one guy into the operating room and they have to close the curtain with so they don't see each other. And it's really funny.
That is funny. That's hilarious. All right, well, that's our show for today. Don't forget to pick up a copy of Healing Hazel because it is so, so wonderful. And also Heather's book, In the Shadow of a Queen, which I don't have a copy of yet. It's in the mail. And don't forget to leave a comment here or on Facebook for a chance to win a copy of Healing Hazel. And also don't forget to subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss any shows. And then if you have any stories that are stranger than fiction that you don't mind sharing, then send them to us at fictionirlauthors@gmail.com. So thanks for joining us today for Fiction in
Real
Life.
Yay!
Thanks, everyone. See ya.